Before the electric bill reaches your mailbox, decisions have already been made far away from your home. How much power a region will need? How many substations must be expanded? How much transmission capacity must be built? How much backup capacity must be available when demand peaks? Most people never see those decisions. They only see the bill. Across parts of the United States, one new source of demand is beginning to reshape those decisions. Data centers. From the outside, many of them look ordinary. A large building, few windows, quiet walls, no smokestack, no checkout line, nothing that clearly signals the amount of electricity moving inside. But on the grid, a data center is not ordinary. It can operate like a large industrial load, running every hour of every day. Servers keep working. Cooling systems keep running. Networking equipment stays online. And as artificial intelligence and cloud computing expand, the cost is not limited to the power consumed inside those buildings. The larger cost may be the grid built around them. According to the U.S. Department of Energy and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, data centers used about 176 terawatt-hours of electricity in 2023. That was roughly 4.4% of all electricity used in the United States. By 2028, DOE estimates that data center electricity use could rise to between 325 and 580 terawatt-hours, or between 6.7 and 12% of total U.S. electricity demand. That is a major shift for a country that spent years with relatively flat electricity demand. For a long time, utilities planned around slow growth. Household electricity use changed gradually. Population growth was manageable. Infrastructure upgrades could be scheduled over years. That pattern is changing. The Department of Energy says U.S. electricity demand may grow roughly 15 to 20% over the next decade, driven by several forces: advanced manufacturing, electrification, and the rapid expansion of data centers. The grid cannot respond to that kind of change overnight. Power plants, substations, transformers, and transmission lines require long planning cycles. They require permits, financing, equipment, construction crews, regulatory approval, and time. So when demand forecasts rise, costs can begin rising before the average customer understands what changed. Data centers are especially important because of how they use power. A home has a rhythm. Demand rises in the morning, falls during the day, rises again in the evening, and changes with the weather. Office buildings have their own cycle. Data centers are different. They are designed to run continuously. That makes them valuable to the digital economy, but demanding for the electric system. The grid is not built around average use alone. It must be ready for the hardest hours, the hottest afternoons, the coldest mornings, the moments when demand pushes the system close to its limits. Those peak hours determine how much infrastructure a region needs. When large, round-the-clock electricity users arrive in concentrated areas, utilities may need more generation capacity, more transmission capacity, and more local infrastructure, even if ordinary households have not changed their behavior. Virginia shows the issue more clearly than almost anywhere else. The Energy Information Administration says Dominion's service area in Virginia serves the largest concentration of data centers in the world. The numbers show how quickly load can change. In 2025, summer peak load in PJM's Dominion zone reached 23,905 megawatts, about 23% higher than in 2019. Winter peak load reached 25,013 megawatts during the winter of 2025 to 2026, about 45% higher than the winter of 2019 to 2020. For a utility, those are not abstract statistics. Peak demand determines what the system must be able to handle when reliability matters most. The concentration of data center demand is just as revealing. Dominion Energy Virginia reported that 7 out of 54 customers accounted for 72% of year-to-date data center demand. The company projected data center billing demand of about 4.2 gigawatts in 2025. That means a small group of very large customers can influence infrastructure planning for an entire region. This is where the economic tension becomes clear. Data centers provide real services. They support cloud computing, business software, artificial intelligence, online platforms, and much of the digital infrastructure the modern economy relies on. They can bring investment and tax revenue to local communities. The issue is not whether data centers have value. The issue is who pays for the grid required to serve them. Every substation expansion has a cost. Every transmission upgrade has a cost. Every transformer, every reliability investment, every unit of capacity needed for peak demand has a cost. Some of those costs can be charged directly to large customers. Others can become part of the broader utility system and be recovered through electric rates. That distinction matters for households. The monthly bill usually does not say data center expansion. It shows familiar categories: generation, transmission, distribution, riders, taxes, and fees. But behind those categories are decisions about cost allocation. If a region builds more grid infrastructure because a small number of large customers need far more electricity, regulators must decide how much of that cost belongs to those customers and how much should be shared by everyone. That debate is already visible in PJM, the regional grid operator serving large parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Midwest. PJM has said its expected peak load for the 2026 to 2027 delivery year increased by more than 5,400 megawatts, driven largely by data center expansion, electrification, and economic growth. As projected demand rose, capacity prices moved sharply higher. Reuters reported that PJM capacity prices reached $329.17 per megawatt day for the 2026 to 2027 delivery year. PJM estimated that the capacity portion of customer bills could increase by roughly 1.5 to 5% beginning in June 2026. Capacity markets are complicated, but the purpose is simple. The grid must have enough resources available before customers need them. It is not enough to pay for electricity after it is generated. The system also pays for readiness. When the forecast says future demand will be higher, the cost of that readiness can rise. That does not mean data centers are the only reason electric bills are increasing. They are not. Electricity prices can rise because of fuel costs, weather, transmission investment, storm hardening, inflation, generation retirements, and state policy choices. Every utility system has its own pressures. But in regions where data center growth is concentrated, it is becoming one of the forces shaping the bill. The timing is difficult for many Americans. According to the Energy Information Administration, average U.S. electricity revenue per kilowatt hour rose 7.2% year over year in March 2026. Residential revenue rose 10.2%. For a household, electricity is not a luxury purchase. A family can delay buying furniture. It can cut back on travel. It can switch brands at the grocery store. But the electric bill still comes due. For retirees on fixed incomes, higher utility costs can quietly reduce breathing room. For small businesses, power costs can eat into margins. For working families already dealing with rent, insurance, groceries, and debt payments, another increase can make the monthly budget tighter. This is how pressure builds in the middle class. Not always through one dramatic shock, but through a series of costs that keep moving in the same direction. And data centers make the problem harder because they sit at the intersection of two realities. The United States needs more digital infrastructure. Businesses rely on cloud services. Artificial intelligence requires large amounts of computing power. Consumers expect online systems to work instantly and continuously. But the physical grid must carry that digital demand. The internet may feel weightless. AI may feel like software. Cloud computing may sound invisible. The infrastructure behind it is not invisible to the electric system. It requires land, equipment, transformers, transmission lines, backup systems, cooling, and electricity every hour of every day. Fixing the cost problem is difficult because the future load is large, but not perfectly certain. Not every proposed data center will be built. Not every capacity request becomes actual electricity use. Dominion has noted that customer requests do not always translate into future metered demand. That creates a planning dilemma. Build too little, and the region risks reliability problems or expensive last-minute fixes. Build too much, and customers may pay for infrastructure that is not fully used. Regulators have to make decisions before the future is fully visible. They also have to balance economic development against affordability. If large data center customers are required to pay more of the costs tied to their growth, some projects may become less attractive. If too many costs are spread across all customers, households and small businesses may end up paying for demand they did not create. There is no simple formula that solves this everywhere. Different states, utilities, and grid regions will make different choices. Some may create special rates for large load customers. Some may require stronger upfront commitments before building infrastructure. Some may approve new utility investments and spread the costs across broader customer classes. Some data center operators may try to secure more of their own power supply or sign long-term energy contracts. The most likely outcome is not a sudden national electricity crisis. It is a slower, quieter change. More utility filings, more rate cases, more capacity market debates, more transmission plans, more questions about whether the customers creating new demand are paying enough of the cost. Most people will not follow those proceedings, but they may feel the result. A few more dollars on the bill, a new rider, a higher delivery charge, a capacity cost that was decided long before the bill arrived. That is what makes this issue easy to miss. The data center boom is usually described as a technology story. A story about AI models, cloud platforms, and the future of computing. But it is also an energy story. And energy stories eventually become household stories. Because the grid is shared. When new demand arrives, the system must expand, adapt, and prepare. The question is whether the cost of that preparation is assigned clearly to the customers driving it, or quietly blended into bills paid by everyone else. The hidden cost of data centers is not only the electricity they use, it is the infrastructure built to keep them running. And for American households already watching every monthly bill, that difference matters.